You haven't slept well in months. Night after night, you lie awake, staring into the darkness that feels heavier than the day. Your mind won't shut off. It races through worries about work, family, health, and mistakes you can't undo. The clock's relentless ticking becomes a cruel reminder that time slips through your fingers even as you remain trapped in this endless vigil. What if I told you that you are not alone in this struggle? That right now, as you wrestle with your restless thoughts, there is a gentle presence ready to hold you not with judgment, but with love and peace that surpasses understanding? Recent studies show that nearly 60% of adults suffer from some form of sleep disturbance, and the emotional toll is staggering. Lack of sleep isn't just about tired eyes. It eats away at your health, your mood, and even your relationships. The American Sleep Association links chronic insomnia to increased risks of heart disease, depression, and impaired memory. But what if there's a path to rest that transcends science and taps into something deeper? Let me tell you about Mark. He's a devoted Christian from Tennessee, a husband and father of 2 teenage girls. Mark used to be a man fueled by ambition and caffeine, burning the candle at both ends to build a future for his family. But after the sudden loss of his father, sleep became his enemy. Nights stretched into hours of tossing and turning, his heart heavy with grief and regret. Mark's story is not just about losing sleep, it's about losing himself in that silent battle. He began to dread bedtime, knowing the exhaustion waiting for him in the morning wasn't worth the restless night before. His laughter faded, his patience thinned, and the distance between him and his family grew wider by the day. One night, in the depths of his despair, Mark remembered a prayer his grandmother used to say, "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." It was a promise spoken by Jesus himself, echoing through centuries, reaching into the very core of Mark's brokenness. He began to lean into that promise not as a cliché, but as a lifeline. Night after night, Mark whispered that prayer, imagining Jesus beside him, holding him through the shadows. Slowly, the tight grip of anxiety loosened. Sleep didn't come instantly, but the battle changed. Peace started to replace panic. Science supports this transformation. A 2022 study from Baylor University revealed that people who engage in spiritual meditation before bedtime report a 45% improvement in sleep quality. It's not magic. It's the brain shifting focus from fear to faith. This is the heart of what I call the Restoration Embracia, simple yet powerful spiritual practice that combines mindfulness, prayer, and surrender to divine care. It invites you to lay down your burdens, relinquish control, and accept the restful hold Jesus offers. Tonight, you can begin by closing your eyes and imagining yourself wrapped in a warm embrace, not just of blankets, but of love. Picture Jesus beside you, steady and strong, inviting you to release the worries that weigh you down. Breathe deeply. Let your heart feel the steady rhythm of grace. Ask yourself, what if rest isn't something you have to earn? What if it's a gift waiting for you even in your darkest hours? Who would you be if you slept without fear or guilt? What difference would that make tomorrow? Mark's journey didn't end with perfect sleep, but it started with a moment of surrender, and from that, healing unfolded. If you're awake tonight, carrying your own weight, know there is rest for your soul, and Jesus is holding you right now. The next morning, Mark woke up feeling a flicker of something he hadn't felt in months. It wasn't the deep, refreshing sleep he dreamed of, but a small crack in the wall of exhaustion that had kept him prisoner. But the days that followed weren't easy. There were nights filled with restless tossing, waking at odd hours, the familiar anxiety clawing back. And yet, Mark kept returning to the prayer, the quiet invitation to surrender his fears. He discovered that healing sleep was not a switch to flip, but a journey, a winding path that asked for patience and trust. One afternoon at a small cafe near his home in Nashville, Mark shared his struggles with his friend Lisa, a nurse and fellow believer. Lisa listened carefully and said something that changed everything. "Mark, sleep isn't just about shutting your eyes. It's about opening your heart to peace. You need more than medicine. You need what I call the peaceful pillars: faith, routine, and rest." She explained how the peaceful pillars are a system she encourages her patients to follow, combining spiritual and practical steps to reclaim sleep. Faith means anchoring your spirit in God's promises, trusting His presence even when fear rises. Routine means creating bedtime habits that calm your body and mind, like dimming lights, gentle music, or reading scripture. Rest means letting go of control and accepting that some things are beyond your power, but never beyond God's. Mark started to incorporate these pillars into his nights. He read Psalm 4-8 before bed. "In peace I will lie down and sleep, for you alone, Lord, make me dwell in safety." He turned off his phone an hour earlier, dimmed the lights, and created a little ritual of lighting a candle and listening to hymns. And every night he breathed deeply, reminding himself that Jesus was holding him. This blend of faith and practice began to soften the grip of insomnia. Studies back this approach. The National Sleep Foundation highlights that a consistent bedtime routine can reduce sleep latency by up to 30%. Coupled with spiritual practices, this forms a powerful antidote to the restless mind. Mark's wife, Emily, noticed the change too. His smiles grew more genuine. His presence at the dinner table more engaged. The tension that had hung like a cloud between them started to lift. But the most profound moment came one evening when Mark finally shared his fears with his teenage daughter, Sarah. He told her how he felt lost in the darkness of sleepless nights, how he wrestled with guilt and worry, and how he was learning to trust Jesus to hold him through it all. Sarah took his hand and said, "Dad, I've seen you trying so hard. I'm proud of you, and I want to help." That night, Sarah started praying with him before bed. The distance that sleepless nights had carved between them began to close. So ask yourself this: what walls have sleepless nights built around you? Who could you invite into your struggle to walk with you? What small steps toward rest can you take tonight? Remember, rest isn't weakness. It's a sacred, strengthened act of faith. And just like Mark, your journey toward peace begins with a single moment of surrender. As Mark's nights grew more restful, a new challenge emerged: the weight of the day. Sleeplessness doesn't just steal the night, it drains your spirit in the daylight hours, leaving you foggy, irritable, and disconnected. Mark found himself losing patience at work, snapping at colleagues, and retreating from his family when they needed him most. The exhaustion was more than physical, it was emotional and spiritual. One afternoon, after a particularly difficult meeting, Mark's pastor invited him to join a men's support group at the church. At first, Mark resisted, ashamed to admit his struggles in front of others. But something inside nudged him toward courage. The group met every Wednesday evening, men wrestling with burdens, brokenness, and battles often hidden from the world. Mark's first night was heavy with silence. But as others shared their stories of grief, anxiety, and sleepless nights, Mark felt a surprising sense of relief. He wasn't alone. They talked about the biblical promise in Matthew 11:28, "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." This wasn't just a scripture to recite, but a real invitation to lay down the weight and find peace. Through this community, Mark discovered what I call the sacred circlia spiritual and emotional support system grounded in vulnerability, faith, and accountability. It wasn't just therapy or friendship. It was a lifeline. With each meeting, Mark grew stronger. He learned to share his fears without shame, to pray openly, to receive encouragement, and to offer hope in return. Scientific research supports this connection. A study published by the Mayo Clinic found that participation in faith-based support groups significantly improves sleep quality and mental health outcomes. Mark's wife, Emily, noticed a transformation not just in his sleep, but in his spirit. He was more present, more patient, more alive. And the distance between him and his daughters began to shrink as he embraced healing not just as an individual, but as part of a community. But there was still one more barrier to break. The quiet voice inside Mark's heart whispered the hardest truth. Could he truly rest if he didn't forgive himself? For years, Mark had carried guilt not only for losing sleep, but for the ways his fatigue had hurt those he loved. He thought he needed to earn rest through perfection, but that only tightened the grip of anxiety. One night, during a support group prayer, Mark found himself weeping openly for the first time. He prayed a simple, raw prayer. Jesus, I'm tired of fighting. Help me forgive myself so I can finally rest. That night, something shifted. Ask yourself now, what burdens are you carrying that keep you awake? What harsh words do you say to yourself when the world is silent? Could forgiveness, especially self-forgiveness, be the key you've been missing? Because rest isn't just about sleep. It's about peace. Peace with God, peace with others, and peace within yourself. If you're tired tonight, carry this promise with you. Jesus is waiting not to scold you, but to hold you, to cradle your weary heart, to whisper, "You are enough." And that is more than rest. It is life. The days began to change for Mark not because the insomnia vanished overnight, but because something far more profound was taking root inside him. He started to see his sleepless nights through a new lens, a sacred invitation rather than a curse. In those long hours awake, he learned to lean into Jesus' embrace, to welcome the peace that comes not from the absence of struggle, but from presence amid it. Mark's nightly ritual grew richer. He lit a candle, opened his worn Bible, and read passages that reminded him of God's faithfulness. Psalms 91, Isaiah 40, and the gentle assurance of Matthew 6, where Jesus says, "Do not worry about tomorrow." More than that, Mark began journaling, writing down his fears, his prayers, and the small moments of grace he found each day. This practice, which I call the nighttime nourishment, blends reflection and faith, allowing the heart to release what the mind cannot contain. Mark's story took a pivotal turn one evening when, during his journaling, he wrote about the loss of his father and the weight of unresolved grief that had seeped into his nights. He realized that part of his sleeplessness was a heart still aching to say goodbye. That night, for the first time, Mark prayed a goodbye prayer, a prayer of release, healing, and hope. He felt a gentle warmth wash over him, a peace that was not of this world. Science is now recognizing what the faithful have known for centuries: grief, when unaddressed, can profoundly affect sleep. A 2021 study in the journal Sleep Medicine found that unresolved grief is a major predictor of chronic insomnia. But healing grief through faith and honest expression can restore rest and renewal. Mark's family saw a new man emerging. His wife, Emily, shared, "He's still tired sometimes, but there's a light in him now, a calm I haven't seen before." His daughters began to notice too. More hugs, more laughter, more moments of connection. So, I ask you now, what grief might you be carrying into your restless nights? What prayers have you yet to say? Who do you need to forgive or release, including yourself? The path to rest isn't just in quieting your mind, it's in healing your heart. Tonight, imagine Jesus beside you once more. Feel his hand on your shoulder, steady and warm. Let the burdens you've carried fall like autumn leaves, one by one. Know that you are held, that you are loved, and that you can rest. The morning light filtered gently through the curtains, touching Mark's face with a soft glow. For the first time in months, he woke up feeling not perfect, but rested. Not because the battle was over, but because he had found a new kind of peace. A peace that didn't depend on how many hours he'd slept or how quiet the night had been. A peace born from surrender, faith, and the quiet assurance that Jesus was holding him through every restless moment. Mark's journey shows us that healing and rest are rarely instant. They come step by step, night by night, moment by moment. And sometimes they come through unexpected places like community, prayer, and simply saying the hardest prayers out loud. There's a truth here backed by science and spirit alike. Consistent spiritual practice combined with supportive relationships can improve sleep quality, mental health, and overall well-being. The American Psychological Association confirms that faith and social support reduce anxiety and depression, two major culprits of insomnia. Mark's family has come full circle. They've gathered around the dinner table with laughter and warmth. His daughters rest easier, knowing their dad is learning to care for his soul. Emily holds his hand a little tighter, proud of the man who chose faith over fear. Tonight, I want you to imagine yourself here. Not just surviving the sleepless nights, but thriving, held, loved, rested. So I ask you now, who do you need to invite into your journey? What small step toward surrender can you take tonight? Are you ready to let Jesus hold you through your darkest hours? You don't have to do this alone. There is rest for your soul. There is peace waiting for you. And tonight, Jesus is ready to hold you. Thank you for listening. If this story touched your heart, please share it with someone who needs to hear this message tonight. And remember, your rest is not earned. It's a gift waiting for you to receive.